I have a second channel, Cube Comp MTDX.
Hey everybody, here's my DBPOWER D2 Action Camera. Having a little bit of an issue with it. Ever since I got this thing, I noticed that when this thing is sitting inside of its watertight case and filming for a pretty good period of time, or if it's being used as a dash cam, when there's no air going across it and it gets hot, the camera gets warm or hot, the camera starts to macro out. It starts to lose focus and focus in on items closer to it. And that's kind of annoying when you're wanting to get crisp HD footage, and of course everything out in the distance is getting blurry. So I refocused the thing, and first I'm going to power it on to show you it's working and everything. So there it is. I don't have a card in it. So the issue is I went ahead and refocused it, but when I went to refocus it, I had a heck of a time getting this lens to unthread loose. So I recently shot a video of replacing the lens and also just doing a teardown and looking inside of a buddy of mine's camera like this. He wanted a different lens in the thing than the stock winding or fisheye lens. He wanted the standard field of view lens. So I installed one for him, which involved a little bit of modification and actually involved a full teardown to get into the thing. So now I have an idea of what's inside this camera and how it works. His was real easy to get the stock lens to unthread out of. So what they do is they put a little bit of glue inside the threads on the top. When they focus these things in the factory, they put a little bit of glue inside here to sort of secure it into place. Well, his, it was just enough to keep it there. Mine, oh, there was so much glue in there. I really had a heck of a time getting it loose, and I'm concerned now that I might have messed up the. Essentially this piece right here, which holds the lens onto the PCB where the sensor's at, because now, while most of the video frame is focused, the bottom left corner is out of focus. So I'm going to tear this thing apart and see if we can figure it out. And also, while I'm in here, I'm thinking seriously about putting in a different microphone, because I'm not really a fan of the stock microphone that's in this camera. It's really not that great. I'm not sure what happened to my good little screwdriver that I use for camera work, but it's probably around here somewhere. Oh, it's right there in front of me. This one. So to get into this camera, it's really straightforward, and it's so similar to the sports cam, those cheap little sports cams. It's really similar to that. So what we gotta do first is we gotta take a small flat blade screwdriver. Heck, I'm just gonna use the one that's on here because it's in good shape. That way I don't tear this up. So I'm gonna do this off camera for a sec. I gotta get my screwdriver in here, more or less in here, and just carefully pull up. This outer plastic piece is just held on by adhesive, and it might take a couple of tries to really start to get it up and loose off of the. See, there's actually, interestingly enough, there's another piece of film on this thing that I hadn't even taken off. Yeah, it's like it's really similar to the sports cam. In fact, the sports cams use the exact same LCD display panel as this camera, so I actually have a spare LCD display. Okay, now I can just go and pull this up and out of the way. I'll set that to the side. So there's the LCD display. And that too should lift out. So if I didn't mention it, it's like this camera was built on a Tuesday and my buddy's camera was built on a Friday. Because like I mentioned with the glue on the lens, there's also this piece of tape right here, which is not, I don't think exists on the other one. It's like this one was built earlier in the week, almost. So I'm going to pop this out of here. Set the LCD off to the side. And now all we need to do is take these 4 screws out. And once those 4 screws are at the whole camera essentially slides out of the casing. So there it is. Next thing we need to go ahead and do is take this piece of tape off. Interesting. It's interesting the kind of tape they use here. It's not that easy to work with. Like I mentioned, the other one did not even have this. Okay, so we gotta be careful with these wires. Don't want to scratch the insulation that's on them. But this little board does have to come up and out of the way, because next we'll be taking this whole assembly out. Guys, this is like this camera was assembled by a different team. It's assembled somewhat slightly different. Now, if I dig too much deeper into this, I'm gonna check the. I'm gonna go ahead and just check the. Oh, that screw was just a little bit loose. I think I found our problem already. So what happened was when I was wrestling with this thing, trying to get the lens to snap loose, it actually broke. A piece, that part of the assembly that sits over the sensor, which I think I may be able to fix with super glue. So let's get this whole thing out of here. Telling you guys, this thing was definitely assembled on assembled on a Tuesday. Okay, so the motherboard does have to come out, so we're going to take it out. Yeah, not too difficult. Which we would need to take the board out to get access to the microphone anyway. It's right there on the corner. Okay, so now this whole thing, there's the other piece to the lens holder I was talking about. Okay, I'm telling you, it's like this thing was literally put together on a Tuesday, because it's constructed. It was actually put together better than the other one, I'll say. Okay, so here's the piece I'm referring to. You may be able to see where it actually broke off. And there's two options. One is to super glue this back together and hope it holds. The other option is to thread this back on the best I can and then use some black hot glue around these sides. I may actually do that instead, because I don't think it's going to get hot enough to melt this black hot glue that I have. The thing with super glue is it releases vapors. As it dries, it will release vapors, and they tend to fog up the lens and the sensor, and I would not really like to see that happen. That wouldn't be fun, I'll say that. So I think I'm going to do that. Let me just look here at this other piece I have. Yeah, they're definitely not the same size. That ain't going to work, unfortunately. I was thinking perhaps I could use this other piece I have, which is made of metal, and fasten it on here, but no, that's not going to happen. Okay, so I went ahead and screwed in the lens holder back onto the board using the one side that's still intact, and it's up here on this side. I decided to put it up here because of course we got a lot of SMT components up here, whereas on the bottom side there's not a whole lot of SMT components in the way that I would have to otherwise put glue all over. So now we'll go ahead and glue this side on, and what I got to do is I got to maintain constant pressure to ensure that this thing remains intact. So I only really need to glue the bottom side because the screw is taking care of the top side. Now I don't really need to put glue on all the bottom side, just need to put some down there to keep this thing intact. Got to make sure that this thing is level, which is why I'm putting pressure on it, because otherwise it would gap up just a little bit, and that would cause the focus issue that we had earlier. And it also appears that this black glue is the same stuff that they use in the factory on this thing, because it looks identical. It's good stuff, I'll say that. From my own experience. Okay, so the glue is dried, and with close inspection, the lens assembly is flat with the board on all four corners. That's what we want. That way the video will be focused on all four corners of the frame. As I mentioned, it was slightly out of focus on one corner, and the reason was because the lens assembly was not sitting flat like it's supposed to. But now that I've broken the glue that holds this in place, and I've actually threaded it out completely and put it back in, that was why I focused it last time, I shouldn't have to worry about putting a lot of pressure on this anymore. So so here's a good look at the inside of this camera, in case you're wondering what's inside of DBPOWER D2. Which the DBPOWER D2 is really just a rebranding of a different camera. I'm not sure what the OEM of this camera is. I'd like to know, because now it looks like you can't find a DBPOWER D2 on Amazon anymore. It's now the D5, which is a native 4K camera, which is not a bad thing, but the way it's designed, it is not compatible with my existing waterproof cases and such, and that's kind of a bummer. And considering how cheap these things are, it'd be cool to be able to find another one. Okay, so next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change out this microphone. Now, I'm going to do this off camera because it's going to be quite tedious work. You can see the two little through-hole solder joints on it, on the corner there. And they are not too far off from some surface mount components. And I'll tell you got to be careful dealing with stuff like this, because the last thing you want to do is accidentally desolder a surface mount component and render the thing useless, because it's next to impossible to reinstall some of these little bitty components, because again, they're so small. So I did practice with surface mount soldering a while back, but I'll tell you, the little bitty components, it's really tedious stuff, I'll say that. So I'm going to do this soldering off camera. I'm going to be taking this little bitty microphone out. I'm going to replace it with, see where I stuck it? Right here it is. One of these. It has little bitty wires on the back of it, that way I can just solder them right into the board. I'm curious what that's going to do with the audio. I'm going to save the factory microphone just in case we need to put it back. So, yeah, I'll definitely be hanging on to that. So, I'll get this changed out and we'll continue recording then. Okay, so I completed installation of the microphone. And as I mentioned, it was quite tedious to do. You can see the little bitty through-hole solder joints where the microphone goes, and you can see where I soldered in the wires, and I used a little bit of black glue to fasten the microphone to the lens assembly, because there's 3 little holes on the side of this case right near where the microphone sits, and I want to keep it in that area. So hopefully this mic here will give an improvement in sound. So yeah, now it's just a matter of putting this thing back together. Okay, so we'll go ahead and start that. Now some people have actually gone as far with these cameras as to maybe not these specific DBPOWER cameras, but ones like it. I've seen people go as far as to mod these things with 3.5mm external mic jacks. I've seen people add external Wi-Fi antenna hookups. And of course, y'all may have seen the video where I cracked open the battery for that little sports cam, for example. I could use that to build what's called a plug-in 18650 mod. I mean, I tell you, the possibilities with these things are just endless. There's so much you could do with these things. So right now I'm trying to carefully get this thing back together. Okay, so I got the PCB fastened back onto this frame. You can see the microphone is situated right there. Good spot for it. So now I want to make sure that we re-secure these items that we took loose. Now this little board here, I'm trying to remember exactly where it was. Just gotta make sure it's left of the microphone. Don't need it to short out again. We don't need for it to short out against the microphone framing. Now in the other camera, that little board was actually situated over here. So it's really weird how they put these things together. Honestly, it's kind of bizarre. So what I'm gonna do, to try to help protect that little board. I'm not sure if it's what exactly it's for. It's funny how it's externally mounted, which makes me think it's probably for like maybe the wireless or something, the Wi-Fi. This thing does have Wi-Fi, so I'm going to just wrap it with some electrical tape on the back side here. It won't do any harm to it. That way we don't have to worry about it shorting up against the microphone. Yeah, that's something I didn't quite realize when I was putting this thing back, when I was locating a spot to put the microphone. I probably should have put it down further inside the camera than I did, but oh well, we live and learn. So I'm going to try to get the footage of the other camera posted on YouTube as well, because it's interesting that I got to disassemble another one of these. Although they're the same model camera, they were assembled slightly different. Like I mentioned with this little daughter board, it was down in this area on the other one. But other than that, they are almost identical. I'm not going to worry about that white piece of tape. It was, matter of fact, when that came off, it left this black stuff under it, which should be enough to hold this in place. Matter of fact, the other camera did not have any adhesive here at all holding this in. So it's obviously not required. Okay, now we'll go ahead and slide this thing back into its frame. And it goes down in like this. Gotta make sure everything goes in. Make sure anything and everything goes into its respective spot. Like the speaker and all that good stuff. Yeah, this thing does share some of its design with the sports cam, the SJ4000 knockoff. Okay, so I had to move the microphone this thing down just a little bit, because this little daughter board was, of course, causing some issues with the reassembly of this thing. So I'm going to try one more time here. So what was going on was the micro USB and HDMI port were kind of shifted off center of where they should be. And I think that little board may have had something to do with it. Okay, I finally managed to get this thing in there. It was that little daughter board, and I found out what the daughter board, I believe, is for. It's for the little handheld remote control that comes with it for that allows you to take pictures and record from your wrist. The little wrist controller. That's what that's for. Because the three blue wires that hooked up to it read VCC, ground, and IR. And the little metal piece down below the lens here is the Wi-Fi antenna. So that leads me to believe the Wi-Fi circuitry is on board. So I was almost considering taking that board off the little wrist remote control, because I never use that, but I much more prefer to keep this thing in running order, everything, including that wrist control, because I may use it sometime down the line. I don't know for sure, but yeah, in a way, I think it just kind of gets in the way when you're trying to put this thing back together. So I'm thinking, I can't say for sure, but I think you could desolder those wires and remove that whole little daughter board without any negative impact to the camera, except for losing the ability to press record from your wrist. But you could do that with the built-in Wi-Fi function anyway from your phone. Okay, so that's in. Now I just gotta put the screen back in and then give this thing a test. So what's nice is I do have a spare lens for this camera now, thanks to a buddy who didn't want the stock lens on his camera. So I'm putting this back in right now. I figured why I had this open. Let me grab the sports cam. And try to show you what I was talking about earlier about the LCD screens being just alike. Well, that's true. I do think. Matter of fact, even the backings are almost identical. I think they're off just a little bit, but will you look at that? Okay, the display is a little bit different, but I do think the ribbon cable does match. I'm not going to try it today, but that screen might work on this camera in the event this one was to quit working for some reason. So that's cool to know. Make sure all the fingerprints are removed off the back of the screen. Now, before I go any further with this, I'm going to pop the battery in and give this thing a quick little test. Make sure it comes on. And it does. And our focus, at least from this little screen, our focus looks good. Now the sound will... Now that's weird. Now the focus, the focus looks good. Now the sound, I guess we'll find out about that here in a little bit whenever I go to test it. Okay, so it's going to finish putting this thing back together. I don't think I got any prints on the inside. There's some on the outside, which is like, yeah, that's not a big deal. But the inside, of course, you want it to be clean. Because otherwise, you have to take it right back off again. And we'll pop the front. We're going to pop the front of this thing. That'll complete our teardown and reassembly. Okay, so there we have it. Now it's just a matter of popping a fresh battery in this thing and we'll test it out. Well guys, that's it for this one. But it doesn't have to be. There's plenty more videos on the channel to check out. Also, if you liked the video, please click the like button. And if you absolutely hated it, there is the alternative button as well. But yeah, please subscribe to the channel. I definitely appreciate it. And remember to click the bell so that we get notified of all updates. Also, if you're interested in things aside from computers and technology, check out my second channel. It's CubeCompMTDX. Over there you'll find videos about weather, elevators, bicycling, and pretty much whatever else I figure out to upload. So yeah, anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and thank you for your support.